One of the biggest reasons I started this podcast in the first place for you guys is to make sure that we keep up with anything marketing that's trending or that is currently active, changing in any way, shape, or form. And of course, marketing in the world of marketing, it changes all the time. It shifts, the balances and everything, and it's never consistent. There's always something new on the horizon. There's always adjustments that you can make, prices going up on certain things. And one of the things we actually talked about with Jessey Kwong, my guest on the show today, is direct mail and how that's kind of been shifting and how people are kind of going more of the direction of customizing and making things very specific and niche to a specific list that maybe you're marketing to. For example, if you're doing a lot of probate deals, maybe you direct mail probate deals to probate leads, but your messaging is very, very customized and niche as opposed to just saying, we buy houses, fast cash offer, close today, like that sort of thing. You're going to kind of be moving away from that. So we've talked about some of those adjustments, but one of the conversations that led to was one of my actual favorite conversations I've ever had on this podcast about how marketing as a whole is both proactive and reactive. I think in life, we like to kind of chop things up to either like everything, like this is proactive or it's reactive and there's no in between. But in the world of marketing, I give a very good explanation of it in the actual episode. Marketing is very proactive and reactive. So for example, if there's something new on the horizon that's coming up, you need to be proactive about it. You need to jump on it, test it out, see what's going on with it, put the proper actions into it to see if it works. If it's working for somebody else, maybe it'll work for you, that sort of thing, and staying on top of it. The reactive side of it is the adjustments. A lot of people like to set it and forget it with marketing and not make adjustments based on data, the analytics, or what the market is telling you. And they just let it go. And then all of a sudden they're broke with their marketing and they're extended outside of their budget with no deals coming through. But it's because they weren't reactive in making the adjustments for the marketing that they're running. So that was a really good conversation that we had as well. Jessey and I go deep into a couple things, but it was just a great episode, very candid conversations and nothing very specific and unique that we were talking about, but definitely things that if you are running marketing in your business that you really need to hear. So Jessey Kwong is a partner in a platform called Pebble REI, which is a platform for real estate investors and CRM that's very property specific. And he talks about that towards the end of the show as well. And he does have two podcasts, one of which I was actually on. So make sure you do go check that out. Without further ado, thank you guys so much for joining us today. And hopefully you enjoy this episode. Let's hop on in. Welcome back to the REI Marketing Weekly. It's your host, Josh Culler. And today I've got my good friend, Jessey Kwong, on the show with Pebble. And he's got a great podcast as well, which we'll talk about towards the end here. I was featured on that, got to talk about a lot of really cool stuff, hung out with Jessey. Super great guy. Today I am excited to be talking about, it's actually not like every day, Jessey, that I say I'm excited to talk about like direct mail, but we're going to be talking about that today. And in a certain way that I think is going to be very interesting for a lot of people because typically, and Jessey, you could probably speak to this more than I can, but typically from the pulse that I'm seeing with real estate investors out there right now is that either you're going hard and balls to the walls with direct mail or you've completely cut it off. And I think that there's very few in between. There might be some people that are just kind of dilated back when it comes to their direct mail campaigns, but direct mail being one of the types of marketing, one of the marketing channels that has stood the test of time over the last 50, 60 years of marketing, right? Like hitting the mailbox, that has kind of took a little bit of a toll in the age of internet and the age of digital marketing and that sort of thing. However, I do know several people that are still crushing it with direct mail. So one of the specific topics that you talked about bringing up, Jessey, was how the decline of direct mail is coming up. However, you guys are kind of like taking advantage of that in a certain way. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let's talk about that. How are you taking advantage of the direct mail marketing piece going downhill at the moment?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, you mentioned like direct mailing, it stood the test of time. And I literally still have my very first mailer on my desk here, by the way. And I remember sending like
That's a novelty. Like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I sent out 500 of these. And I locked down 3 properties with this. This was, 6 years ago now. What's really interesting is like the realm of like the digital side of things. Like this is across the tech industry that I'm in, and I talk to people in the credit repair space to, marketing generation space to the real estate space. And we're seeing like a tighter and tighter grip with a lot of the stuff you can do digitally or electronically. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know I know all the legalities, because there seems to be always loopholes and whatnot. But I certainly see a tighter and tighter window. And then so we're also seeing with direct mailing, which is also interesting, is that there's been a consistent decline, I would say, in the last 12 months with direct mailing. And I think it's sort of becoming there's sort of this like widening gap of people doing direct mailing and getting success, and then people doing other things and leaving direct mailing. And the people that are doing direct mailing, from what I'm hearing and what we're also seeing in our back end of our system, is there seems to be a consistent level of deal flow coming from direct mail. Now, I'm going to be very careful here. I'm treading on very, very gray waters by saying this works and this is the strategy. There's so many variables that go into this. What are you actually sending out? What is your messaging on there? What's the branding on there? Everything ultimately matters as well. But from just looking at a numbers perspective, we're seeing mailing declining, and people are taking advantage of that fact. That means less mailing are reaching doors, and your mailing is more likely being kept. Now, I also want to preface by saying, like, I'm not financially motivated by letting you know about this, although we do help with mailing. That all gets passed directly to the print house and USPS. So I also want to preface by saying that. But yeah, we're seeing sort of a lot of consistency in terms of deal flow for those that are doing direct mailing. And it's funny, like, it's on my podcast, like, I speak to everybody they do everything. You have guys that are doing everything from texting, cold calling, in-house cold calling, ringless voicemail, and PPC, PPL, and everything works and everything doesn't work. But again, having a focus on direct mailing, I'm just surprised by the consistency that they're getting. And somebody brought it up to me recently. It was like, it's almost like nowadays you gotta almost pay to play and win at this game. And although, and the thing with mailing is, like, the mailing rates are also going up higher and higher. I mean, as of recording today, USPS has increased it, or is going to increase it tomorrow again. And so this is like filtering more and more.
Increased cost, you're saying?
Increasing postage again. This happens almost twice a year to the clock. Or to the T here. Every year it goes up at least once, or if not twice a year. So again, people are taking advantage of that. They're seeing less and less mailing being sent out. They're getting more unique with their mailers, and they're getting in those hands. And the great thing about mailers is that it stays. Like, I mean, like, people keep them, and it's very, very normal for us to see people get back to them 6, 10, 12, 18 months to 24 months later, because they kept that mailer. It is not abnormal. I've had that personally happen to myself. So again, I think there's a widening gap and you're sort of seeing less and less people doing it, but the people that are doing it are winning big with mailing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for clarity's sake, when we say slowing down, and I kind of walked you into that phrase, slowing down mail, does that mean that the rate in which people are sending out mailers is slowing down, or leads is slowing down?
Yeah, it's the number of people sending out mailers. Okay. The number of people sending out mailers. Now,
and do you think that the efficiency is still there with the amount of leads that are coming in? So you gave a couple examples, and I just want to clarify that question. So You're saying the amount of people that are sending mailers out has slowed down, but the leads have pretty much stayed, I believe you said, consistent. Is that
correct? Right? Yeah. So if, exactly right. I mean, the people that are sending mailing are sending the same amount of mailing. They're getting consistent results out of it. No, they probably have tweaked it and gotten really a true understanding of their messaging with their mailing. One thing that we do see people do is stay away from your traditional messaging. So like, hey, I want to offer fast cash for your property or whatever. What messaging is winning? I don't have this is not something that we track within our system. This is very highly customizable, highly personable. So we don't know exactly, but we know that people are staying away from the traditional messaging to get them on the calls. And these people are winning big with mailing.
I was about to ask, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but I was about to ask, what are some of those tweaks that are being made in order to be able to see more results with direct mail, even if you don't necessarily have the data for it, but even if you have like, here's a gut feeling, like you're saying people are staying away from traditional messaging. What are people going towards a little bit more?
I think people are being more problem and solution based with their mailing versus like, I want to offer you cash. And it also depends, are they looking, for houses, it's pretty straightforward, but something like, land can be a little bit different. Maybe they're targeting, people who've died and want to resolve really messy ownership on that. They're getting really, really specific with their messaging. Again, I don't have this is all very, oh my gosh, what's the word? Anyways, it's all through conversations that I've had on our podcast and hearing what people are doing. And so, so again, the messaging is very direct. The other thing is like personalization is really important. A lot of people take pride in this, and that we've seen, I've seen people split test. So I do have data on this where, if you're getting hyper, personalized, like for example, like if you print the satellite image of their property on a postcard and have some sort of a doodle with a post-it design, we have sort of designs like this. And it's so funny. People don't take advantage of these things. Even though we push this, because I guess it's like I don't know. It's just like, it's too out of the norm, for a lot of people. But people that are doing stuff like that are standing out and getting, again, better results. These aren't hard things. I mean, when I first started my mailer here, I mean, you can see it right now. I have things like, I drew a star, I drew a happy face on another one. I would hand sign it. Now I crossed out this, so I didn't show it, but I put all sorts of doodles. This was back in 2019, 18. And like, this was getting me great results. But now, like, you can get even more hyper targeted with some sort of customization. So customization, pretty self-explanatory there. But you can do some really unique stuff. And then like messaging, like really being like problem and solution based there. So that's also another thing we're seeing.
So I'll give my kind of summary of what Jessey's saying, which this is something you guys have heard me talk about a lot recently on not just the podcast, but on the other types of content I put out as well. The only thing that I really, really look back at, Jessey, when it comes to when you're saying getting more dialed in on messaging and customization, the first word that comes to my mouth that I always say is the most underrated word in marketing is the word relevance. You're creating relative plugs, basically, from the customization and the direct messaging to the actual audience that you're trying to reach. This is why it's so powerful for, we always it's always this mystic thing of like SEO and search engine, the keywords, key phrase, stuff like that. The reason why that exists is because all the, systems and the algorithms and all that are trying to do is to create relevancy points from who the listener is or who the audience is or your customer is directly to what you're putting out. And if there are no connective tissue, then you're not going to reach your audience. And it's the same thing on direct mail, where it used to be where you could send out, 30,000 direct mail pieces to your market specifically. It's very generalized, yellow piece of mail like that with a lot of text on it. We buy houses, fast offer, cash, like no closing costs, stuff like that. Used to work. Like back in my day when I was running a marketing department for a wholesaling company, we would put out bandit signs. I just said, we buy houses with a big phone number on it, and we would get calls off of that. And that normally doesn't work nowadays because maybe, let's say, for example, and Jessey, like, I'm sure you see this, is like, you may have fast cash offer on there, but what if they don't want to move fast? What if their motivation isn't like, I don't need to sell today. I need to sell like probably 5 or 6 months from now, but I'm in a situation now, but I don't really need to do anything with it 5 or 6 months from now. Like, it's all the relevancy, and the more you disconnect that relevancy, the less likely you are to reach that audience. And that's why, like, some of the most successful, not just direct mail marketers, but marketers in general, will very much niche their marketing to a specific demographic. So if they're doing probate, they're going to be marketing that messaging of probate, right?
Yeah. 100%. It's like, what is that? Getting out of the sort of the messy middle there, where everybody is doing the same thing, and that's it. People tend to tune that out, and so niching, getting very specific with your messaging, and serving a very specific audience, you're going to find a lot more success to that. So, I want to add one more thing that I'm also seeing with direct mailing, a totally different sort of thing here, but we're seeing mailing paired up with different channels now. So it's like, we've got, if you're doing texting and mailing, and it's really interesting. Like, we're seeing people like find success in texting, saying, "Hey, I'm sending you a piece of mailer.
Yeah.
It's going to be coming your way."
Another relevancy point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're staying in the safe zone. They're not soliciting anything like that. They're not talking about properties. They're just letting them know, "Hey, I'm sending you a piece of mailer. Let me know when you get it," type of thing. So we're seeing that. That's like, I heard that in the last 2 weeks. I think 4 teams tell me that they're deploying this sort of strategy and they're having success with that. So I thought that was really interesting. I'm also hearing that with cold calling as well. People are cold calling and then pairing that up with mailing. So sort of this whole multi-channel thing, but it seems like mailing, again, it is quite a powerful message, and people obviously are seeing the ROI on that to continue to mail. Because I'll be honest, like, mailing is not cheap. I mean, it's not like what it used to be.
And that's why I look at one up too.
Yeah. And that's why I push for postcards, because it's a lot cheaper, and then it kind of goes standard rate and all this. I can get into mailing rates and whatnot, but I won't. So it's not a cheap form of marketing. So again, it's sort of a pay to win kind of strategy for a lot of people.
Interrupting this podcast episode to tell you guys that this podcast is managed and produced by Color Media Productions. Yes, shameless plug, that's my company. However, we do this for a lot of other people as well. Most people that we work with are in the real estate investing space. So if you're listening to this podcast specifically, you probably are a real estate investor, given it's called the REI Marketing Weekly. If you're somebody that either wants to start a podcast or you have one going and it's becoming a little bit of a hassle, you're looking to transition to somebody that works a little bit better with a fluid motion in terms of you get the recordings done and then they do everything else. Well, that's what we do. We do fully managed podcasts from start to finish, video, audio, show noting, the graphics, publishing, everything that goes into it. It's a full service business that we run here in a service for you as a real estate investor if you are running a podcast. Additionally, we also do social media and YouTube management as well. So all of that being on the organic side, if you are interested in learning more about working with us and just recording content with guidance and strategy set by myself personally, and then not doing anything else after that, where we're taking care of everything from start to finish, then make sure you go check us out at colormedia.com, CULLER media.com. Hit us up there and we can learn more about working together, hop on a phone call and see what we could do for you. Now back to the episode. Yeah, so I have a question on that specifically. This is going to be a very niche question, but I think it is very interesting for a lot of people to talk about, just because, like, everybody always has a budget for their marketing. So if we're talking about like direct mail cost going up, is it a substantial number? If it is, or if it's just a tweaked number in any way, shape, or like maybe it's a small incremental tweak, or maybe it's a big leap.
Yeah.
How would you recommend investors kind of adjusting their budgets? Is it like, well, we just make your budget bigger, or do you just send less direct mail? Like, how do you balance between the decision of, like, if you're actually seeing success with direct mail, but your cost is going up now, which means your cost per acquisition is going to go up? How do you kind of balance, and what conversation do you open up with that?
Yeah, I think it's sort of working backwards here, seeing what your margins are going to potentially be, and then you have to do a little bit of forecasting with what you have in place already, and working back from there. Now, the great thing about like mailing is it's not like a tremendous amount. Like, we're talking about half a cent up or a cent up per piece, but I mean, it does add up.
Yeah.
Now, from what I've seen, I feel like we're a little bit spoiled. Like we are, I mean, come on. On my first mailing campaign, and it's not like rates have gone up like it's not like it's doubled or anything, but when I first sent out my mailing, it was crazy. And I locked down. I sent out $250 of mailing, and then netted $10K or $15K in my first couple deals, and it was like, man, that sort of sets a bar for you. Now, obviously,
that's that standard for you.
So
that it's going to happen again.
was there any other form of business that you get into.
Yeah.
I just can't
You're right.
see the
You're right.
costs, like, so we're really spoiled, but I think ultimately, yes, you do still want a good margin with what you can make. So work backwards from what you typically are, and maybe you have to niche down and get into certain areas. Maybe again you're working through distressed properties, maybe you're subdividing, maybe you're doing some sort of crazy work with entitlement or whatever it is. See how you can force that appreciation as well. And this is a game of business. Like, you cannot expect things to stay the same. It will never in any business. And if it is, you better start being paranoid because you won't survive. I think it's really the ones that are paranoid but not losing sleep, obviously, continue to push yourself to figure things out, because the game will continue to change. Josh, I think you've been in this space a lot longer than I have. And I don't know, like, I've been in this space for about 67 years now, and it's changed a lot and many times. So it's just part of the game. But anyways, in terms of budgeting, I think working backwards, and I think I'll add to that. I think we're spoiled with kind of the spends that we have.
Yeah, so this is a great conversation to have, especially and I didn't think this was going to go this direction, Jesse, but I do think this is a lesson learned. And I'm glad you said spoil, because it truly is a lesson that every, not just real estate investor, but business owner needs to learn. Is the truth in marketing is that, and I always say, ride the wave as you can, but at some point that wave is going to fizzle out. The wave may happen again, but it will fizzle out at some point, regardless of what you're doing. If you're doing TV advertising, if you're doing Facebook ads, SEO, PPC, the landscape will change at some point. So it's your responsibility as a marketer or salesperson to ride that wave, and to ride it as long and as efficiently as you possibly can. And I think that, like you said, when it comes to being spoiled, what's the truth of, like, let's just say, like, a kid that's spoiled is that until they get their hands slapped repeatedly for crying about something, they're not going to change their activity. So when it comes to running your marketing, and this is the same, like, we're having this conversation right now about direct mail, but this is the same conversation that people were having 4 or 5 years ago about Facebook ads, where people are all complaining like Facebook ads have gone up and it's still expensive now. Same thing for PPC. And what did people do? Well, people are still locking down deals with Facebook ads. People are still locking down deals with TV ads, with PPC. They just made adjustments along the way. And that's kind of what you need to do when it comes to marketing. And it's the truth of, like, as you grow and scale, you're going to be making budget adjustments. And so it's just your responsibility to make those adjustments. Because if you just sit still and expect for that wave to ride all the way to the end of your business, to into eternity, then you're going to be losing sight of it. And sooner or later, your margins are just going to be doing this as you are closing deals. And then at some point, you're going to be out marketing yourself. And that's a dangerous game to play.
I'll add to this just because it's really fresh for us. I mean, as you mentioned, Josh, like, riding the wave. And I think this doesn't just apply to marketing. This applies to anything within business. It's, like, it's so easy to just kind of sit on that and realize, like, or not realize, like, okay, I'm not really doing much. I'm not really pushing much. But I urge you, when you're riding that wave, to find how you can spark that creativity and inspiration and motivation, because it's so easy to sit in that. And I've done this before. And then when shit hits the fan, you go into panic mode, and then you go into reaction mode. And this is definitely not the place you want to be in. Yeah. You want to come from a place of creativity and play. Like, honestly, I mean, it's kind of a cheesy word, but playfulness when it comes to your business, because when you're just simply reacting, you're typically not in a great place. So if you are currently writing something right now, experiment, have fun, try something different while you can keep the lights on with whatever you're writing. Now, maybe you don't need to and you're set for life. That's a totally different story. But if you want to continue to build things, enjoy running a business, you want sort of longevity in that, make sure you sort of find that creativity spot again so you can have fun and start getting inspired to try different things, even if it comes down to marketing strategies.
You and I keep sparking off each other. One thing I'll add on that is, I think this is something that's been very interesting to me over the years, and how long I've been in not just real estate, but marketing itself, is that everybody wants, not just in business, but not in marketing, not just in sales, but in everyday life. People think that like things are either reactive or they're proactive. And I love what you said there. The only thing that I would not combat you on, but add to it, is that marketing as a whole, and just based off this conversation we had about direct mail, marketing as a whole is both equally reactive and proactive.
Correct.
In order to be able to ride that wave, you have to be proactive to get on it in the first place. So you have to do the research, you have to do the build out and the maintenance of it, the budgeting and all of that, and actually the actions and the executions to get on it. But the reactive side of it is that marketing as a whole, I mean, you talk some of the most successful marketers in the world, they'll tell you that 70 to 80% of the marketing that they do fails, but it's that 20%, it's the 80-20 thing. It's like 20% of it that they do makes up for 80 to 90, 100% of their revenue stream. And so it's testing. That's where the reactiveness of marketing comes into play. And I think that there's this proper balance. And this is why, and I've seen it for, I've been in the business space for 13 years now. And I see this all the time, Jessey, where business owners, obviously when you first start, you got to bootstrap stuff. But they think that they need to learn anything and every single thing about marketing, which I think that you should learn as much about marketing as you possibly can, especially if you're a wholesaler, because wholesaling is nothing but a marketing and sales business.
Right.
So when it comes down to it, though, as a marketer, you can't expect yourself to be aware and be able to do every little thing in a marketing function and still run a business successfully. You have finance to think about. You have culture to think about. You have growth to think about, processes, systems, all that. So that's where there's a whole other conversation, but the delegation of whether you're working with a service provider or somebody in-house to run your marketing is important because they can help manage that proactiveness and the reactiveness because that would be their full-time job, right? So that's my thoughts on that.
100%. Yeah, no. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned even like testing and whatnot, although that's, technically, I think that is, you're right, that is reactive, but I mean, you can still find the playfulness in that and creativity in that. So, yeah, I'm on the same page with you on that one.
Yeah, this has been some great conversation, man. I think we are close to our time. We've had a really good conversation back and forth about, first off, direct mail, and then leading into the conversations that we had here. And I think this is a very insightful thought process that everybody that's listening right now needs to be taking aware of. And we're just talking about direct mail right now, but I mean, we're on the rise of AI. We're on different tides of SEO and PPC, the way that Facebook ads are being ran. I still know a lot of people that are having high success rates with TV ads. Like, the difference is in marketing, you have to make sure that you're managing the proactive and the reactive side like we're talking about here. So, Jessey, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, but I want to give you the opportunity to be able to talk about some of the things that you have going on. I was recently on your podcast. I don't believe as of the recording today, but maybe when this goes out, but as of the recording today that you are on, my episode hasn't gone out yet. But you guys make sure that Jessey's going to talk about that. Go subscribe to the show. You're going to see yours truly on there. We had a lot of really great conversation. And so, Jessey, best way for people to connect with you, learn more about Pebble, learn more about your podcast and that sort of thing, how can people get in contact?
Yeah. So I started from a real estate investing background, and systemizing, getting processes in place. That's really the key of what I am doing here with our platform called Pebble. You can sort of think of it as almost a property-specific CRM. Whether you're wholesaling, flipping, land, whatever it is, the unique thing there is we're tracking for the property records, and not only that, tracking for our highest spends, which is marketing. So how many times did I do a mailing campaign? How many times did I follow up with cold calling? Whatever it is, whatever your multi-channel is, all that, we keep that simple inside of Pebble. There's a lot of fantastic tools in there, from automations to texting, calling, direct mailing sent out, direct mailing designer in there to it's sort of all there. But I think the unique thing is we're property based versus most CRMs are lead based and people based. But in the space of real estate, we care about the property end of the day, right? If we're buying a property, we don't care about that seller anymore. We care about that property. Maybe we're gonna work on that property, fix and flip it, or maybe we're gonna do some entitlement on that land itself. So, anyways, that's my main thing. If you're interested to learn more about that, that's Pebble REI for realestateinvesting.com. But For you guys that are listening, you want to catch Josh on my show. I've got 2 podcasts. So I started off with the Land Investing Business Secrets podcast about 4 or 5 years ago. That's been running for a while now. So you can check that out on all the places. Or the new show that I recently launched, which is the Wholesaling Secrets podcast as well. Again, you can find it everywhere. And then we're really active on YouTube, whether it's working on the product. When I say we're, my team, my co-founder, you can find us on Pebble REI on YouTube. We've got a lot of content there as to what we're working on.
Awesome. We're going to have all of that linked below. So you guys make sure you do go check that out, subscribe to the shows, and send a message to Jessey and let him know that you guys listen to this podcast episode and you're happy to connect with him and that sort of thing. But Jessey, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for delivering a lot of value and having some great conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks very much, Josh.
Awesome. Guys, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining and listening. Once again, all of the things that we talked about to connect with Jessey on will be linked down in the show notes below. So just make sure you do go take advantage of that and dig through it, subscribe to his shows and that sort of thing. Subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. And if you haven't already, make sure you have, while you're over on YouTube, checking out Jessey's channel. Also check out my channel, Josh Culler. You'll find me over there putting out few videos a week talking about how you can take your content marketing game to the next level in every way, shape, or form. I'm putting out a lot of really, really good stuff, really aggressively trying to grow my YouTube channel. So make sure you do subscribe. And then other than that, thank you guys so much for listening and joining me today. And we'll catch you on the next one. See you later.